Hello, welcome to TrueHoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I am well, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. And Henry Abbott, how are you?
I'm just glad you're back from Florida. For a while, I was like the only guy in the Northeast.
Yes. Of the TrueHoop crew, you were the only one.
Pretty hot and humid down there, wasn't it?
It was. So it's interesting, right? So you guys know, like I run, do all that, right? So I was like, it's kind of fun to like train in different conditions, right? So I had to take my mom in for surgery early. So like, we get in there at 6, whatever, come back at 7 a.m. I'm like, all right, cool. Do my, 5 mile. I'm like, and it's fine. I'm like, I'm good. Times were still what they normally are. All my negative splitting. I was like, running in humidity, kind of interesting. I'm like, I can do this, but humidity plus 95 degrees, probably not. So it was good. You run in the morning when it's like 80, fine and humid. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
But 90s and humid, nah, that's death. Yeah. I'm out.
Jarod, I had a day in the NBA. So NBA finals are in June, right? In Miami. And whatever my free time was, and like 1 p.m.
Middle of the day.
I was marathon training for this giant long run. And I recognize how Miami looks. Miami's a very good looking city, right? Like people who look like me don't run shirtless in Miami. But I was like, otherwise I'll die. So I just ran shirtless, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like shirtless, and mostly I was running out in the middle of nowhere. But when I get back to civilization, there's a woman with like a sign and some flyers, and she crossed the street. I'm gonna run to press into my hand her like body hair trimming and electrolysis business like card. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. Right? It's fair.
Only Miami.
I accept your card.
That is so South Florida and makes so much sense. Yeah. When you're down in Florida, you really get, he will say, I feel like it's such a different place. You're just like,
well, Miami is very different than Florida too.
Everybody's in like a Lamborghini and a
it really is amazing.
And a tan and like
or they're pulling their yacht up to the harbor side, whatever. Listen, it's fine. But no, it was nice change of scenery, but happy to be back in the Northeast. A little cooler. It was much cooler this morning on my run. Way less humidity. That was nice. Yeah. But guys, when I was away last week, we were like, all right, if anything happens, I have my stuff. We can do an emergency pod, whatever. And we're like, because it's the NBA. Anything, shit just happens. We had a good week. Nothing happened. Finals ends on Monday.
I predicted doom for you. I was like, we're going to do that podcast. Right. And the whole NBA is like, no, Jarod needs a couple of days. Yeah. Give him a couple of days off. We'll wait till Sunday.
And then Sunday they said, fuck that. Trading efforts. Like, oh my God, what's happening? So here we are. Bradley Beal is now a member of the Phoenix Suns. In exchange for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, a couple second round picks, and some pick swaps. Well, first, when you heard about the trade, David, what were your first thoughts when you first heard it?
Is anyone ever going to like Landry Shamet? That was my first thought. Poor 5 Landry. Teams? How many teams?
I mean, yeah, and he ain't in the league that long.
He's like not even his mid-20s, I don't think. It's close, yeah. So that was my first thought. My second thought was what I said to you guys today. They could be, I had a lot of thoughts. They could be very good for a couple of years. I would not make them favorites to win a championship. And then I think it's going to be disastrous for them, and we'll talk more about it. The other thought I had was everyone always talks about defense, but they never draft or trade for it almost ever.
Ever.
And we're going to get into that too. Like you got Booker and Durant. Can you just bring some defensive studs? You got a defensive-minded coach also, who I think will make a difference. Give him some players that are more likely to excel in that kind of strategy. And instead, they went to get a guy who I think can play better defense than he has been playing. And to be fair, he's been in the equivalent of Sacramento. Washington's just been bad for a few years, and what's gone on there. And nonetheless, he doesn't project to be a better defensive player. A really good one, maybe decent, not really good. So that seems weird, but they'll still win a bunch of games because their offense will be great. Just like Denver was great this year with offense.
Well, at 29, right? What has he shown us thus far in his career that would indicate, right? Yes, he was in Washington, which, as you mentioned, bad franchise, but still, you have not shown much inclination on that side of the court.
Henry, his on-offs have been good for the most part, so it means he's done something right, but he's definitely trending in the wrong direction. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Henry.
What were your thoughts?
My main thought was, I remember 2 summers ago, the notion was that the Wizards could get anything and everything.
Exactly
the
right.
full Gobert, right? Like for Bradley Beal. And then I'm like, honestly, really deeply, they consider themselves like, these smart owners, and they're always talking about Lorene Powell jobs and all these movers and like whatever. It's like, what did you get from these last 2 years? And now you get Landry Shamet and a bag of chips, like for this magical player, right? Like the CBA has turned in a way that was like kind of predictable, right? Like, and it's just too expensive, right? You waited too long, and like let that be, and this is going to get worse, right?
Mhm.
The punishments for having overpaid older players are steep, and are so steep that Bradley Beal, who isn't even 30 yet, he'll be 30 like next week, I think, week after that. He's worth almost nothing on the trade market, right? So let that be a lesson to everybody who's got a deal like that, and don't hang on to that guy too long.
About to do a big deal with someone that probably shouldn't get such a big deal.
For sure.
Yeah.
The particulars also, let's be clear, of the Bradley Beal contract, which will get transferred over to the Phoenix Suns, is he had a no trade clause, which meaning that wherever the team decides that, there's a great deal for us, Bradley has to approve it to lift it so it gets moved there. So many people were talking about, the Miami deal was better, but maybe he didn't want to go to Miami. So he's like, nope, screw that. I'm going to Phoenix. So you have to take whatever Phoenix offers you if you want to move on from Beal to start your rebuild, which arguably you probably should have started in Washington a while ago, but whatever.
I'm sure we said that 2 years ago.
I'm pretty sure
we did. Not rebuilding?
We were not alone.
When are they not rebuilding?
But I mean, seriously, like, what are you doing with this $60 million player on this, like, dreaming of making the playoffs team? Like, it's just not, it's incorrect. That's an incorrect place to be. I do think also, like, if you're a bad team that wants to be good, you need to be improving.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds really basic, but like having a guy who's 30 and expensive and on the downslope, like the math just will never come together where your roster is going to be super high value, right? It's just,
And this is the reality of the NBA, right? Players oftentimes are not being paid for current level performance. It's always on the back end of what was happening prior, right?
Yeah.
And Henry, you always say, wherever you are today is the best. And David, right? It's the best where you're going to be from a player perspective, health-wise, whatever. The more time the calendar pushes, you're just getting a day older, 2 days older, 3 days older, whatever. More miles, more chances for injury. And when you're Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, who's 34, already off two major injuries, this is a problem. For me, guys, when I saw this, I immediately, even though I know it didn't happen this way, thought about Vogel, Ishbia, and James Jones sitting around after having went through the NBA playoffs, watched the finals, and said, guys, no, you know what we got to do? This is how we win. We get Bradley Beal. And I'm like, really? You watched the whole post and that was your thought? Let's triple down, actually, on what we already have and not address anything we don't do well. And look, as David said, offensively, they can be very good. Again, assuming health, which we can never assume because shit happens. But I just worry about all the other stuff, right? In the finals and in the playoffs especially, what you notice is guys who are only good at one thing tend to not play a ton, right? But guys who can do lots of shit tend to play a lot. We saw that with Christian Brown, Bruce Brown, all these players. And even though the Heat guys shot poorly in the finals, they played well all postseason long, right? Because they could do lots of different things. And I just don't think the Suns have a lot of versatility on that roster. Of course, this is just Monday, of June. They'll look a lot different probably come the beginning of training camp, but right now they got more work to do on that roster.
I'm sure Vogel is confident that he can turn a lot of players into solid, average defensive players. But that's even as a strategy, it's such short-term thinking that maybe, I mean, even if you win a championship, which at 3%, 5%, whatever the number is, for this year, is that worth destroying 5, 6, 7 years potentially? If you have a couple years of good basketball, great basketball even, and then the desert for 5 years, I don't think that's smart strategy. I don't think that. Maybe other people do. Clearly they do. Or they think it won't matter. They think we'll always be able to trade Booker and get a draft pick or two back, which they're right. When it doesn't go well, they're right. Booker's fantastic. He's worth something. But still, you're still setting the clock back years.
This is the same as everybody who got James Harden in recent years, right? Like same conversation, right? Like, you'll definitely be expensive. You'll definitely have tax worries. You'll be doomed with a significant injury, and you are not guaranteed to win anything, right?
That's
to me, like, it makes sense if you're turning a 58 win team into the finals favorite,
a 60 win team or 61 win
yeah,
team.
and like, okay, just all in,
All
right?
in.
But this is kind of YOLO thing with your, I don't know what I mean. We'll say the Suns after this are probably going to end up as like the 4th or 5th favorites.
Yeah, I mean,
something like that. We don't
no
know what
one-
the watch is
no-
going to be, but yeah,
no one here is favoring them over Denver right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Denver, Milwaukee, Boston are just, without even having to think,
Are just better.
well, yeah. I mean, I just have a hard time picking that team over those teams. Ironically, this team had won 60 some odd games just a couple years ago.
yeah.
And with a number of good young
Mm-hmm.
or just reaching their peak players,
And without paying luxury tax and with all their picks.
Mm-hmm.
and so they just, they always say, if you want to get out of the hole, stop digging the hole. They did the deal for Durant, and now they just keep digging.
Yeah.
Oh my God, did they downgrade from Robert Sarver?
Well, it's odd, right? So, like you mentioned before we started, Henry, that they are not in the repeater tax situation because they never paid luxury tax before, because Robert Sarver was one of the cheapest owners in the history of the NBA. Matt Ishbia clearly like, oh, I'm not on that train. Spend. It's like, he likes it now. Today, he's fine with it. They don't win the championship next year. And then, is he going to like it next year? Okay, maybe he has a stomach for it for 2 more years. Does he like it in year 3? Probably unlikely, right? One thing I know billionaires don't like is spending money for shit they get no returns on. That I know they don't like.
It's this. I mean, so Prokhorov, Paul Allen, and Steve Ballmer, I think, all arrived with like, you guys are just, you don't know what it really takes to win. And like, I'm going to show you. And they just like open the pocketbook like crazy. And it's exciting and it's fun. But like, the CBA is specifically designed to punish that exact guy. Like, literally, we're taking your revenue sharing. They're going to start taking their picks, right? Like, John Hollinger reports that, let's see, according to some documents that The Athletic has seen, if they stay over the second apron in 3 of their next 5 years, whatever, if they keep paying a crap ton of tax, right, then their first round pick in 2032 may automatically get moved to the back of the draft, which literally means the rest of the owners are like, we're just going to move ahead of you, right? Like they're here to make Matt Ishbia pay for thinking that this is the way to get ahead, right? And they designed it, and they just made it much more punitive. So yeah, it's a exciting and fun thing, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Like, it's the Nets are kind of on the back end of it now when you try to mop it up and after you do your big star play, right? And it takes a long time. It's going to take a long time.
But at least Brooklyn, in their thing, they were able to get out of it, get out of the Harden, and get out of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and they have a bevy of picks and money. So they're actually in okay shape with young talent in Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. So they actually managed to have those 2 years of playoff runs, right? Mm-hmm. And then, we left them all, and we can come back next year. Kind of worked out pretty well for them.
And the way it could be amazing, right, is it's with an injury, which I don't hope doesn't happen. Right. The Suns picks could be incredible, right? Like,
yeah. And let's talk about that. Look, we, as you know, here at TrueHoop, injury is just a part of the game, and Henry spent a lot of time talking to various experts. It's also what you see with your eyes. Like, older players get hurt. That's just a fact, right? I mean, since LeBron has been in LA, he has gotten hurt every single season. And this used to be the most durable guy in the NBA. Every year he's been hurt. Durant had Jones fracture when he was in Oklahoma City and tore his Achilles when he was at Golden State. So when he got to Brooklyn, he had a quad or a hamstring injury. Like, he twisted his ankle when he's signed with the Suns. Every year it's going to be something, right? In addition to all those other things. We're not predicting anything catastrophic, but the injury timeline ain't looking good, right? Something's going to happen. Shit, Devin Booker's 25. And he got hurt. And he missed a bunch of time last year. Like,
is that all he is 25?
25, 26? He's young.
He's 26 right now.
He's young, but he already missed months with a hamstring. Like,
Beal's been hurt.
Right? This is going to happen. And you have all that money tied into 4 guys. If you add in Ayton, that's basically you're well over the threshold, and you're in the luxury tax with just 4 guys. So the idea now is you're going to fill out the roster with vet minimums. And when has that ever worked? In the history of the NBA, spots 6 through 12 are vet minimums, and we win the championship.
It did happen. Like, LA in the bubble is the one example, right?
Okay.
That was the only like thrown together like what we could get in August around Stars team that's ever done super well. Like,
they had a huge benefit happen to them, which was the league shut down for 4 months, and LeBron and AD got to rest a ton, so they can come back and be gangbusters in the bubble.
It was a weird year. It was definitely, but yeah. And the other two things they go for him were LeBron. Just kidding.
then there's also that, right? LeBron's also quite elite at basketball. That helps as well.
Yeah.
So the other portion here, guys, from a basketball perspective is, okay, the roster's devoid. They don't have a lot of versatility anywhere. You got to bring back, Ish Wainwright and Torrey Craig on minimum. Like, this is what you, and hopefully Jock Landale. Like, this is what you got to do. As David, you got to coach your guys up and develop. Are we sure they're going to do that in that program? I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. But what if they decided, okay, we're not done here, and on draft night we move Ayton and we get some other stuff back, whether it be, you got to get obviously you need a big man back because you have Jokic in your division and Anthony Davis, so you need a center, and you get some kind of versatile wing player back. Is that an avenue they can take, David?
Well, they have to do it. They have to get back a number of guys for the money Ayton's making,
$30 million.
And I'm not sure anyone is even willing, like how badly teams want Ayton. He's very overpaid based on what they've seen. That doesn't mean someone won't do it. I actually think, Jarod, that's the super smart play, is get 2 or 3 or 4 guys.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Yeah. Find a defensive minded center. And I haven't looked at the trade machine, but I actually think that's pretty interesting, and also you've got your taxpayer mid-level exception they can use to get someone in. There'll be some good players they can get there, potential good players. Well, one good player out of a nice group. But yeah, I think that's the better play, is get 2 or 3 guys for the one. But, kind of you guys are intimating already with the owner, like, that's not splashy. If they're worried about splashy, that's that doesn't have a lot of splash to it. So a lot of flash.
They'll probably be lucky though. Like, I would guess that this will be a team that, these free agents who we were talked about last show, who like there won't be big deals for, and they're just going to go take a minimum deal for a year somewhere, right? Like, it used to be that the Lakers would be the team they would
Phoenix
try to get
is a
right?
team that's attractive now for that.
Everybody likes those guys, right? Like, everybody likes Devin Booker. Everybody likes Kevin Durant, right? Everybody
they like playing with them for sure. That's for damn sure.
They'll be like a high potential team with some roster spots. It might not be the worst year to have some, have that. They'll get some. I don't know who it was. But there'll be some middling free agent who works his way there.
The Denver Nuggets, of course, will be a team high on that list too. Will be attractive to get guys like that as well, right? Because they just won the championship, and who doesn't want to play with Nikola Jokic, right? Like, I know I'm going to get the ball. If I do stuff, he'll pass me the ball. It will be interesting to see if that is in fact a deal they consider. Look, we already know that James Jones does not believe in the drafts, so to speak.
What exactly did he say?
This is good. Okay, Devin Booker is great. But it wasn't until winning was imported. Chris Paul, Trey Crowder, drafting a 3-year guy that could help right away, like Mikal Bridges, translate it into success. So I'm like, so you're talking on both sides of your mouth because you drafted Mikal Bridges. So I think his thing was more like young guys, right? Like, and Booker was 18 or 19 when he got drafted. And David always says, right, young guys they don't know what they're doing, right? They don't know how to read the game. But this is also the part of it's your job as a team and organization to teach them so they can be contributors. Christian Brown was a rookie. He's not 19, but he played 2 years at Kansas? At least 2, maybe 3.
Where is this thing about quizzes? I'm allowed to be quizzed?
Point being,
I don't follow college. I think 2 years is right.
Point being,
I think 2 years is
he
right.
was a rookie who, listen, he had a bad regular season.
Sucked in the regular season. Shined in the postseason.
He was able to, right? And that's because they coached him up and he knew what he had to do, right? Do I trust the Suns to do that? Maybe.
And he had a ton of legs and other guys were way too much tired. Yeah. He was fast.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I just, what have the Suns shown you in the way of player development that would make you believe that they can do that? They're not the Miami Heat, right? They're certainly not that. So
true.
I just don't know. Bad beat.
Yeah. I imagine that little scene Jarod was describing. When you really are strategically thinking about this move, were they thinking we're going to be great for the next 4 years? That to me is I get it. You think you can be really good for the next year or two. It's possible.
Sure.
It is possible. Whereas for some teams, it isn't possible. Detroit's not going to be great next year, no matter what. They have some good young talent. They're not going to be great. But this isn't about 2 years. And so, and to me, most importantly, is all right, after in years 3 and 4 and beyond, when do we kick back in? Because to me, you guys know I obviously live in Tampa Bay area. What I always say about the Rays is we have a terrible stadium where it's situated now. They're going to get a new one maybe. But, boy, they've had about 7-8 years. So a 6-year-old kid is 13 now, and all he knows is the Rays are good. This year we're the best team right now, but they've always been good. It just kind of gets in your DNA, and you become a lifelong fan because of all those years. Well, Phoenix is about to go in literally the desert, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and I don't know when they're going to get out. It is not going to be an easy thing to get out, and so you may lose a generation of fans. You may not, but one championship isn't going to solve that.
Yeah.
When you're bad for a long time after that, I guess they're not worried about it because they'll move on to someplace else. Maybe they're thinking.
Well, and the Nets are kind of the model of how you can unwind your super team, but like this is an older Durant. Right. And no trade Bradley Beal. Right.
Yeah, no trade Bradley Beal.
It's like there's going to come a moment where those two guys are not valuable because they make too much money for the production they can deliver. And maybe there are going to be injuries part of that story. And like it comes a point where you can't always trade a big name for a ton. Right. Who just learned that? The Washington Wizards. Right. Like,
and the Nets got Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
And he's untradeable now.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is when they have to get out of this desert, they're going to have to trade Devin Booker. And to David's point about, building loyalty among the fan base, whatever. So the young kids that were young when Booker was drafted, when they were at 10 or 12, whatever the age is, well, that's the guy. That's their guy, right? This is the homegrown guy. We're going to move him. Well, now I'm off this team completely because, Durant, Beal, they're all those guys are brought in here under a variety of circumstances. But this is our guy. Yeah. We drafted him. We went through the terrible 8-win seasons and all that shit, But he'll be the only one of any value, right? By 28 or 29, still doing all NBA stuff.
And there's a weird like that. Kobe's last seasons were like really strange, right? Where the team's terrible and they roll him out there for like
shooting 20% from the field, taking 90 shots a game.
Well, it's just if you're honoring him. Right, is like the reason that they paid him all that money but it's like the Suns would be this. If they trade Devin Booker away, they're going to be like a Kevin Durant museum,
right.
And it's like you're going to honor him by like just making him drag his old body through these like triple teams and LLL. Like it's not honoring
nothing
him.
but else.
It's not. Yeah.
Another thing to look at, I was just thinking, guys, is we talk about the arms race all the time. My guess is no one else in the league that's thinking contending is worried. Oh my God, they got Beal. We're in trouble. Like, I think it's just a regular day at the office for them. I really do.
Calvin Booth,
they'll be good, but I don't think you panic.
Calvin Booth didn't lose any night rest last night. The GM in Milwaukee didn't. No, they're fine. They're like, we know.
Are they both bad defenders? Like Booker and Beal, are they both bad defenders? Or are they like okay?
Booker's according to the metrics, he's like average. He's like he's not. He competes. He's like Beal negative.
Beal has no excuse not to be average. No excuse. But still, I mean, and Durant's a plus defender. Still, amazingly enough.
Yep.
They've got a lot of work to do. But to that point of other people worrying about it, I don't want to lose this. I said this to you on the show. The one guy that I know is very happy is Sam Presti. Because as you're thinking down the road with that juggernaut he's building, like, well, that's one team we ain't going to worry about in 2 or 3 years for a while. Right? There's some of those teams that are trending up. They need some of these other teams to fall back, and that's one of them. They've got Frank Vogel's work is cut out for him. It won't be hard to score.
No,
it won't be hard to score. Bradley Beal's a good player.
Yeah,
knows how to play, obviously. Led the league. Did he led the league or second league in scoring when he threw 30-something?
He led the league in scoring.
Was he? He led the league 1 year, a couple years ago now.
Yeah,
it's been a few years.
But his 3-point shooting is like last season was
gone down.
Yeah,
but their team sucked. But still, you're right.
That's the question.
It's gotten worse.
So that's the question, Dave, from a play standpoint. I know it was fun. Everybody thought it was cute. The mid-range assassins, okay, yeah, nice. It's all wonderful. You got to change the shot profile a little bit. You guys need to shoot some more threes. So do you think now? Because you figure if they don't get a point guard, right, you move Booker to he's making the primary point guard.
Beal can do some of that too.
Beal could do it as well because his shot profile.
All the guys can handle the ball.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Durant and also if you, I don't know who this is. I have to really think about it. If you can find the poor man's Drew Holiday, very very poor man's Drew Holiday, a guy that can just be a quarterback, not score like Drew, defend at a higher level. That would be interesting for them because then you could just play Beal at 3. So you got 3 guards with Durant, and they'll do some small ball with Durant at 5 also. I like your idea best. I like the idea of moving Ayton for multiple guys. I'm going to play with it today, guys.
Yeah. I just, to me, I put the hat on. Okay, if I was smart, which I'm not suggesting anybody in the Phoenix organization is, I'm like, okay, if I'm doing the Beal thing, I can't just do that and vet minimums. My thought has to be, what's my next valuable in quotes asset? DeAndre Ayton. He's under contract, 3 years, 100 and whatever left. So $33 million a year, give or take. Can I turn that into 2 to 3 guys? Like, that to me is their best option. We'll see how it all plays out.
If there's someone willing to take Ayton.
Yes. If there's someone willing to, and
these are players, right? Like everything we're talking about are players who like would be more valuable if they made less money. Right? Like we tend to think of it as like, oh, Bradley Beal, he can lead the league in scoring. It's like, yeah, but he makes so much money that it comes down. Ayton, same thing, right? Like if he made $20 million a year, everybody wants it, right? But,
Perfect. Exactly right.
Do we know, like, I feel like this might be a sign of the poor state of sports journalism, but like, do we know what the real issue is with Monty and Ayton? Like, and why does it extend to the whole league? Why does everybody think he's a jerk? Like, right?
David and I talked about it.
Athlete,
we I mean, ever since it happened, David, we were like all year we've been like, and I've said like, it's still not right. And it clearly still wasn't. Like, I don't know. Remember that piece came out, ESPN did it. I forget who, may have been Baxter. The talking all about like, oh, he's up till 5 a.m. playing Fortnite. Like all these like weird things were coming out. And I was like, all right, you guys don't like him because he fucking plays video games? Like, is this what it is? Like, like, come on.
Jordan was doing that in the casino.
Right. I mean, what is the thing here? Like, what are we actually doing here? I mean, it could just be like, David, in locker rooms, some guys are just like, quote unquote, weirdos and teammates don't like them, right? Like Grant Williams is kind of one of these dudes, right? Like, Rondo was like that for a long time. Like, there's just guys who people are like, oh, they just don't jive for whatever reason.
Henry brings up a great point about that aspect of it, because it is a little bit unfair maybe for teams to just assume that. We talked about this earlier today too. The best teams find a way to get everyone rowing the same direction, the same time. Role players buy into their role. I remember I've talked to a few players over the years faced with that, and the mature. I remember Udonis in particular, way back a long time ago, recognizing I'm gonna have to do less, but we're gonna get more from it. And not everyone can do that. This is why we talk about culture. How fast and smooth is that river flowing? And that's on management and ownership and coaching. And so in Phoenix, it's not been great. Clearly, they've underachieved pretty dramatically ever since the playoff meltdown a couple years ago. I don't know that it's going to change at all in Phoenix. But to Henry's point, someone else can bring DeAndre in, and all of a sudden he majestically soars. And Phoenix can win from it by getting other players. But they'll say, wait a second. When did he become that guy? Well, he was always that guy. You just didn't do your job. Bruce Brown, Brooklyn, nothing against Brooklyn. They had what they had. But they had to see this Bruce Brown say, oh, wait a second, he's a guard? Like he played in college at guard and not a small ball 4, 5? Yeah, that kind of stuff matters.
If you listen to interviews Bruce Brown's given, he said, oh, Sean Marks wanted me back in Brooklyn. And he just left it at that.
You think that was Nash?
No, I don't think it was a Nash thing. I think it was a Kyrie thing. Yeah, because people were like, oh, it's a Durant thing. I'm like, no, Durant and Brown are tight. Like, it wasn't
interesting.
I think it was a Kyrie thing, like, for whatever reason. I'm just like, okay,
very interesting.
Yeah, it's just, you gotta read it till you lose a little bit.
I like you, Jarod. I like you, Jarod.
Just,
Yeah, you can't read pick and roll coverage like I can. But that was a real gem right there. I really, really appreciate that.
I have to watch pick and rolls in 1/100th speed to see, right? I'm like, oh, now I see it.
Listen, sometimes I like watching slow motion too. I'm no some genius. I need a
David.
I don't see it like I think.
1/100th is fucking like molasses in really January rolling down a hill. Like it's anybody.
But very helpful. It really is expository.
Helpful, yes. I'm like, ooh, I see it.
We're gonna get to the draft in a bit.
Yeah.
When we get to Amen Thompson,
Oh, you
I
like
wish I could do 1/100th. His shot is so fucked up.
Oh.
I wish I could do 1/100th on his
No,
shot.
I
Just
thought you were
remember
gonna say 'cause
that we
he's
talked
so
about that.
exciting as an athlete, but no, it's because
He-
he's broken.
No, he is an unbelievable athlete.
He is.
We have a lot of those guys in the draft,
Yeah.
but his shot's fucked up.
One of the interesting things we'll talk about still from this Suns trade before we just wrap it is there's some nepotism or nepo baby involved in this trade. Nepo baby, you guys know you're paying attention to pop culture these days. So
I don't know what Nepo baby is.
Oh, it's like this whole thing about Hollywood nepo babies and everybody getting angry about them I'm like, but that's how the fucking world works. Nepo babies are fucking everywhere. Like that's just, I always blame my parents. I'm like, couldn't you guys have been like in fields that I care about so I could be a nepo baby too? But no, whatever. Didn't work out that way. So Mark Bartelstein, Priority Sports, and Bradley Beal's agent.
Huge agency.
Yes, huge.
Yeah.
I believe last time I checked, there were 12th of worldwide sports agencies. So really, really, according to Forbes.
Worldwide to include like soccer and stuff.
Pretty good.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But in the NBA, they've had a strategy of signing up a billion guys.
Yes.
A lot of players.
Yeah.
And so that's Bradley Beal's agent and is his agency. He is the father of the Phoenix Suns CEOs, Josh Bartelstein. And of course, you know how the NBA works. Oh my God, conspiracy theories abound. This is why they took all this crazy shit was happening. And Twitter's good for that. So I'm like, oh, this is amusing. Everybody's like, they got fleeced because dad was doing a favor to his son and vice versa. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe. I highly doubt that's the reason. I just think it was Bradley had a no trade and he's only going to lift it to go where he wanted to go. And for whatever reason, he wanted to go to Phoenix. I'm assuming he talked to Book and Durant and Vogel and everybody, and that was part of the sell to be like, all right, I really want to come here. So,
the no trade clause is an interesting thing because the reality is most of these teams aren't looking to screw a superstar. But I think both you guys are making the point. It is potentially a handcuff. Even if a deal looks like it should work and you're going to help this team, assuming that it's going to boil down to that, they still can say, nope, don't like it. Don't like the weather. Don't like the point guard. Don't like the owner, whatever. It could really, it does potentially limit your options.
No. And there would for sure be, the problem is whether it's effective or not, people around the Bradley Beal character in this story there's always going to be so much money to be made from getting Bradley to insist on this or that. And he has this weird moment of king making, right? And so, that's going to happen. I don't, there's a whole episode of Succession or Entourage around that, right? But
king making.
But this whole idea that it suddenly got corrupt, it's they had Lon Babby ran that team,
right?
And he left his agency in DC and handed his clients to his partner Jim Tanner, and then went to run and then then who do they have after that? Anyway, but they've the NBA is 40 guys, and they all talk to each other, and some of them are related to each other. It is alarming and corrupt every day, not just in this little situation.
That's just look at that, father and son, whatever. That shit happens literally all the time.
You notice how they all swap, all the coaches, all the GMs, whatever. You know how many places Travis Schlenk has worked?
Right, it's merry-go-round.
Relationships.
It's a merry-go-round. One seat gets vacated, next person hops in.
Listen, I need that to continue so that if my son ever gets lucky enough to get a job, I need him to continue to circulate in that world and get off my dime forever. So I'll come back to that.
It's all about
a piece of sushi on that conveyor belt. And get on the conveyor belt.
Please.
To wrap the end of this, so on the Washington side, we don't know for sure yet, but it's been reported and it is likely this is not the final destination for Chris Paul because at 38, he doesn't want to be on a rebuilding Washington Wizards team. That guy wants to try to win a ring, so they're going to try to figure out, can the third team get involved to move him probably on draft night is what I would guess, or right before draft night, and or they decide to buy him out and then he becomes a free agent this summer and he can sign for wherever, whoever wants to pick him up. Backup point guard. Milwaukee might be nice for him. Just a FYI.
Toronto.
Ooh, Toronto. That could be nice too.
Why do you say that, David?
Because they are desperate for guard help. Fred VanVleet just opted out and may go back, but even so, they still need another. He's not really a true lead guard. They do have a lot of wing talent. They've got Pirtle at the 5. Their coach is a real tactical guy. We haven't talked about him. We could all be skeptical of some things Masai's done decision-making wise, but I think that was a really good hire. I made a lot of phone calls. I don't know him at all. The coach, Darko.
Ragovic.
He's
How confident are
really
you in that, Jarod?
I'm like 50%.
really well liked, well thought of, well respected. Serbian guy. I think it can be good, and Chris he fills a huge need there, and they're going to be good.
That is my favorite.
Maybe not great, but it'll be good.
My favorite thing about Chris Paul is how he turns like an OG type player into a wonderful offensive weapon, right? Like he just knows how to like make that happen.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one other thing that struck me as like, there's a million rumors about Chris Paul going here, there, everywhere, and coming up sometimes is the phrase "banana boat," right? Because Chris Paul is
he's friends with
LeBron
and all them,
Carmelo, but way back in the day when Chris Paul and Blake Griffin were not getting along in Clipperland, and it was problematic. Chris is relentless, right? He's like a very some guy who's well positioned to know this was like, all those banana boat guys talk about wanting to play with Chris Paul, but you notice how they have all this influence and none of them actually get Chris Paul on their team. Like, are you noticing that? And like, maybe the Lakers are a little more desperate now, and maybe that's wrong, but he's been around for a long time, not ending up alongside those guys.
Chris is one
point.
of my favorite players of all time. But he is a little general, man, and he is going to be barking orders at you literally nonstop. Yeah. And I could see after a while that might start wearing on you a bit, and you might be like, "Chris, shut the up." Like, I know, but it's.
And what's with the Clippers, man? Every time there's like an old guard somewhere who's
Let's bring him in.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, we must get Russell Westbrook and all the John Walls," and like what are they like? How is this possibly the good strategy?
It's perfect. That's the spot for him. Perfect.
Yeah,
he's gonna reunite with all the old guards. No, it will be interesting to see how things play out in the next couple of days. Like I thought this week was gonna be nice. We do a little pre-draft today. Everything. No, shit's crazy. All right, so let's talk about more disasters or potential trades happening. Damian Lillard, Chris Haynes. Reported something over the weekend, basically that the Phoenix Suns are like, I'm gonna get the phrasing exactly right. There was a genuine belief that this could be the offseason the veteran guard seeks a change of scenery. So here's the thing. Everyone knows that if Haynes reports just about anything on Dame, it's coming from Dame directly, right? That's how that whole...
Well, be clear, Dame. So Damian Lillard, I'm sorry, be clear, Jarod.
I'm like,
Damian Lillard is telling Chris Haynes, please report this.
Yes, correct.
That's what's happening there.
Correct.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Which is totally fine.
Whatever. Yeah.
I will like to point out that 2 years ago, we here at TrueHoop already reported something that was true at the time, right? But then, certain players got cold feet and decided to, no, it's not true. Whatever.
Well, they're in a little battle, right? Like this has been a very bad marriage, right? Between Dame and the Blazers. As Dame just explained on that boxing podcast. I don't know if you guys bothered to listen to the whole hour, but like,
no.
The guy was like, have you ever felt like, maybe it wasn't right for you? And he was like, yeah, 2 years ago. Like I really did some soul searching and thought maybe just we couldn't work out. We had some hard conversations, blah, blah, right? And he said that to people then, he said it to us, right? But so it looks like, meanwhile, he did this thing, right? He went on Instagram 2 years ago and said, how long do I have to wait? Then he also said, I'm loyal. And it let people who think he never wanted to leave believe that he would never want to leave. Meanwhile, his agent is furiously working on getting these things. And he's being now this thing that Chris Haynes just reported is like the fifth time the Lillard camp has said this summer, right? Like they're like super clear. And think about this as a marriage, right? If they're like, hey, listen, like if you park the car in front of the house, I'm leaving you. And it's like, that's a very normal thing that I might need to do. Use a draft pick. That's what teams do, right? Like, especially if you get the third pick, right? Like, if you are taking the position that you're out if they do this very good for the team thing, like this marriage is nowhere close to solid, right? And so to me, like the idea that he's just like the king of loyalty is like having talked at length with his agent, like that's a fucking joke, like this has been very rocky. They just haven't had their spat in public, but the team keeps feeding him young teammates, passive aggressive as hell, right? he and plus a Jeremy Grant. That's the one thing. Like,
we're good. Yeah.
Well, 1 year guaranteed deal for Jeremy Grant, right? Like, so that's we're building around Dame. Meanwhile, he keeps, and like if either one of them said we want a divorce, like the other one would go along with it, but the fans would turn on whoever said it first, right? So to me, like this third pick is the wedge issue now, but yeah, when Chris Haynes uses the word genuine there, I bolded in our document, like that's this is for real. And I read the Portland local media, and there's a hilarious thing happening, which is every writer is like, oh, well, I really thought about it and went down the rabbit hole, and like, I'm pretty sure that they should keep Dame. And then they go, oh, I thought about it. Different story. Went down the rabbit hole. I don't think they should keep the third pick. It's like, mofos. The conventional wisdom is in a head-on collision here, right? Like, instead of those two easy choices, like, there's a hard choice, right? And like, not gonna be easy. I don't know what the Blazers front office is really thinking though, because it could, to me, all of this, like, we're absolutely keeping Dame, is perfect to drive up the value, right?
For sure.
Like, the rest of the league is like, it doesn't make any sense for you to keep Dame, right? It just doesn't. Like, you're exactly the Wizards with Beal. Like, this just doesn't.
Which we've been writing for 2 years too.
Yeah, you're a middling team. Do you want a $60 million guy on that team? No, probably not.
I suggest not. I mean, it's
Yeah.
why Miami makes sense, right? Because they were just in the finals, and you could see how a player like Damian Lillard would help them potentially get over the hump, right? Like,
it'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Now, how long that lasts, because he's another.
He was unbelievable this year.
Best offensive player in the league.
This ain't no Bradley. Yeah, this ain't no Bradley Beal. Lillard was a step above that for sure.
Yeah,
fucking amazing. Yeah,
yeah.
Henry, so how are you feeling as a Portland fan about this? Because to me, the whole like
wait, what? He loves Portland.
It's been a really tough last few months to like just not be a Blazer fan, because there's like so much. It's like the Blazers are like a, I don't know, like a very valuable thing that's like on a high shelf teetering, and it's like, oh my god, is this odd? Like, it's like a tell you I don't care about. Like, is this whole thing gonna break? Like, yeah, I'm worried, Jarod.
I imagine you are. I also just feel like this whole thing with Dave and the king of loyalty, and like, he's tweeting out, you guys love running from the grind and all of that. I'm just like, dude, can't you just say what you mean? Like, it's just fine. Just come right out and say it. Like, you don't want to be here, whatever. Fans will get mad for like a month and a half. Like, whatever. Move on. Like, be honest.
Like, what did Mark Bartelstein say to the Wizards that resulted in this no trade clause, right? Like, he had to have him by the neck and he had to press down, right? Like, that's a terrible contract, as we just learned, right? Like, Aaron Goodwin said all that stuff to the Blazers, right? Like, this was mean. You don't get this extension that he got. Like,
right.
To Blazer fans, it was like, oh, we got him for a little longer. Lucky us. And it's like, no, man. Everybody in the room knew that was just like I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take that, and you're going to give me that too. Like, and just give me all that. And like, this was a terrible, terrible deal. It took a wonderful player and just diluted his value immensely for the good of his pocketbook. That's what happened there. Like, that's not what friends do, right? Like, that's what you do.
And that's fine.
Leverage. It's fine.
Yeah. Right. You have no problem with that.
Yeah. But it pecks a little at his king of loyalty reputation, right? Like, loyalty. So to me, I guess I feel like I genuinely don't know if they become a win now team that doesn't win now, like with big salaries for the long haul. Like, if they trade good young players and picks, they trade Scoot Henderson.
I know.
And like Anthony Simons for someone who's 30, like, oh god,
Henry's gonna be so upset, so upset.
And for what? For loyalty to a player that's 30 years old? Like, it's a business.
And the other thing I think is being underrated is like, if you get Scoot, I'm just going to use Scoot as a stand-in, but if you get Scoot Henderson and the return for whatever you can get for Dame, like, you really think Blazer fans aren't going to be excited about that? Like, like
at least pretty quickly.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Like, it's going to be like now is the period when the Thunder are starting to get really fun to watch. Like, you'd be somewhere in that mix, right? Like,
I agree.
Like, the next 5 years would be
ascending.
What fans like.
Yeah, no, definitely ascending. Have you heard anything, Henry, about the potential sale? Is any more scuttlebutt around that?
I mean, it's assured that there will be a sale because of some wrinkle of the Paul Allen estate.
Yeah,
but,
it has to get sold. I don't know if it had a time crunch on it.
It was at one point the story was it was within 5 years, but now the story is that that's not the case.
Okay.
You could. Well, actually, there's the other little like thing that people say is like, Jody Allen's not that interested, and has handed most of the responsibility to Bert Kolde, who's like, I want to say he was Paul Allen's like college roommate. Maybe?
Okay, but love it. More nepo things.
Yeah,
happening.
I think check me on that. But the story is that Bert really enjoys it,
Oh,
And like,
so you
and
want to hold on a little longer.
once the team's gone, what does Bert do with his life? Right. This is kind of like,
Jesus Christ.
so I think there might be a little bit of foot dragging in that realm, but
It's just people are unbelievable. Oh, like I just like really like, is this where we're at with this? All right. Anyway,
Joe, you can't decide though because you kind of want to be a nepo baby, right? Like,
I mean, I do want for sure. Like listen. The only people reason why you don't like nepo babies is when it's not you. When it's you, you love being a nepo baby, right? Like it's fine. Like whatever. Idiot son, sure. Give me the keys, Dad. I'll run the franchise. No problem. Did I wreck the car again?
When I was in high school, a lot of my friends could get jobs in the summer working for either their mom or their dad's business where they were doing regular things. My dad was a lawyer. So one year at my as I graduated high school, I had to build houses working for a construction company. That sucked. That run you guys did in the humidity, that was my life every single day from 7:00 till 5:00. And that included roofing, pounding the roof, all that shit.
Out on that story. Nope.
And then the next year, I was pulling weeds out of sand traps at a nice country club that we were not members of. But I think it was my mom knew the superintendent because their daughters did twirling together.
That sounds like a gator project to me. Were there alligators in that project?
Well, back then there weren't many alligators alive. Remember?
They're on the march.
No, they were going to be extinct. I don't remember seeing a single gator. Now we have one like in our neighborhood, but
it's like in David's pool. The gators in David's pool right now, just hanging out.
What's the graph though? Is the graph like coming at such a rate that like are the gators way up? Is that what we're talking about?
Way up. Like if you go to the Everglades, you read about it. Of course, that's also where the pythons, because people keep buying pythons as pets. Then they realize this thing wants to eat my child or my dog or my cat. So they let it loose in the Everglades, and now they have a major python problem, which I don't go to the Everglades.
Visit Florida, folks.
It's just a small part of Florida. We don't have those problems here. We've got hawks and owls at my place and one little baby gator.
It's all bad.
In the boat.
But I remember being very upset about like my dad. I never thought about the good things that we had, but it was like, this is the jobs I get from who my parents know. Building houses in the hot sun in Florida in the summer. Super.
No nepo babies here on this podcast. Let me tell you. None of that over here.
None of that.
Dude, when I was in college, I looked at the board, the NYU job board, and just like literally, like I was just desperate I had to survive in New York City working part-time. And like the biggest amount of money you could get for any listing was Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. That's where I worked.
Great.
I went to work there. I did like whatever stuff. Meanwhile, I knew a guy whose dad knew somebody or whatever, and he got a job setting up the aisle cap displays of Pepsi in grocery stores.
Yeah. End caps. Yeah.
You get a lot of money.
That's a big deal.
He made like quadruple what I made, and I was working so hard and commuting and blah blah. And he was just like, he had a little stripy shirt.
Let me twist the Pepsi bottle this way.
There's a whole
golf at David's club. Yeah.
It wasn't our club. We'll get back to basketball, but my college roommate works for he represents his liquor company. When I say liquor company, I think they did $12 billion in sales last year, and they're number two. They're number two. No, number one is Southern. Number two is National. He works for National, and he is the liaison between Sam's Club nationally and his liquor company. And I mean, there's battles going on how you product placement
for sure,
because humans are stupid and we're late and we're lazy. Mm-hmm. So whatever's at eye level, you're fighting like crazy, right? Yeah,
that's what we're grabbing. Eye level.
Yeah, so that's why what Henry's saying. That's exactly right. There's got to be some good books. That'd be a great TV show. Actually, we should talk to our mutual friend there.
Write that one down. Henry, not us though. I go to the grocery store. I go to the bottom shelves. I'm like, what's on these bottom shelves? And they don't want me to see. Let me go nosing around down here.
That's why you're so successful, Jarod.
Yeah, it's exactly why. Yeah, what do you not want me to see? Oh, I don't want that soda crap. Get that out of here.
Got a whole shelf full of maraschino cherries down here.
David, back to basketball, because we can talk about like cherries and all kinds of things for hours on this podcast. I had a question. Can you pry OG Anunoby away from the Raptors, and what would it take?
I mean, I know a year ago, Masai told me that he wasn't looking to trade his big wings. I have no idea what they're thinking now. He seemed unhappy last year, OG. Did. And so the answer to that question is yes, if OG's people have said, please trade us before we demand something publicly. But they just got to a new coach, I would think that'll slow things down a little bit. OG's valuable.
Very
The
good.
coach, two-way players are valuable. So they got Siakam, him, and Scotty Barnes. Those guys should be good two-way players, right? This coach should be able to come up with some good things. But if he's unhappy, I mean, they definitely could use guard help. Gary Trent Jr. is a free agent. Fred VanVleet just opted out, so they need help at the guard positions. And so yeah, it's gonna and they'd want to replace OG.
So I have a guard in mind. His name is Tyus Jones. He plays for the Memphis Grizzlies. Could he be the possible centerpiece of a deal to bring OG to Memphis?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Henry, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's likely because I think they're going to value. I think OG is going to say, "Let me see how this new coach." It was a bad what ended up happening in Toronto with Nick Nurse. It just really broke apart.
Got really bad.
So this guy knows what he's doing. I made some phone calls and was really happy with what I heard. People who know what they're talking about said this guy's the real deal.
And also, let's be honest about Memphis. With no John Morant for 25 games, they can't be trading away guards.
No, they need a guard.
They need guards at least for the first 25 games of the season. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt around Zion Williamson potentially moving. I mean, there's been scuttlebutt about other stuff, which this ain't the pod for that. You guys can, on your own time, research what's going on with him. Look, he is at a stage. We were talking about this either on the phone or in our chat over the weekend. This is a guy that, I mean, best metrics ever. Like, and when he plays, actually,
MVP caliber talent for sure.
You predicted, like, if he's healthy and plays this season, he'll be, and he was playing like that.
You're right. I did.
Certainly playing like that, but he got hurt and all this shit's
right away
now, and so it's looking bad. So, I mean, is he even tradable right now? I mean, I'm sure he is because he's still young and like can be super good. But is this something the Pelicans should even entertain?
I don't think so until I think you just said it. His value has really dropped. There's no way you're going to get what you could have gotten until this last spate of bad things. You've got to rehab his brand in a sense. And if you still think the fundamental issues with his problems, whatever those are, aren't changed, you know intimately what's really going on. If those things don't change, even though he's playing better and healthy, then you trade him when you can, knowing it's going to come around and let him be someone else's problem. As sad as that is to say, it'd be the same thing with John Morant. If he's suspended 25 games and then does another issue, at that point you go, okay, you rehab him and then you get him out.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the Morant thing, Henry. In the press release that Adam Silver released, they said he has to work on a program with the NBA and he has to fulfill and of course all this nebulous language. And we're like, well, what the fuck is this program? Like, who are you working with? What does that even mean? Is the NBA the right place to get programs in place to rehab players? I'm going to say no, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Like for many years, we were trying to do this story about the marijuana program, which now doesn't exist anymore. But it's like marijuana rehab isn't even really a thing. Like it's not. It maybe should be a thing, but go try to find a counselor who's going to. The NBA allegedly has 100 players who are doing their weekly. I forget. There's in the CBA it's specified a whole bunch of therapy from like. Does that even exist? Does that even happen? It was just a thing to make the racist white Southerners still think the NBA is on top of it, right?
Right.
Yeah, this is a Jonathan Abrams story. Today's New York Times cover story is about this guy, Terrell Terry, who, just was Jalen Suggs' contemporary his whole childhood and played for a couple NBA teams and just had a frank discussion here with Jonathan Abrams about Charles' mental health and just was out of the league by choice, right? He just was I just can't do this anymore. So yeah, no, it's a terrible, terrible place to struggle with a lot of stuff, right? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Zion other than he doesn't seem to believe in what the team is doing. And he has the potential to be the best player in the history of the game. Those two things are a little bit right?
Yeah,
so
that's a problem.
To me, I'm it's the first answer to the question for me is probably biomechanics, right? It's what's happening? How does he move? He has been assessed to P3 multiple times. And, they say things you just got to pray that everything's going to be okay, which isn't how they say things when it's good. Right.
Right.
But
So
that can be correctable with training,
everything
right?
can be correctable. So to me,
Right.
this is the thing, right? Like, the problem with a lot of these things is like they're not working on it, right? Like it can be correctable. It's not being corrected, right?
Yeah.
So,
No.
I mean, remember a year ago, he came back after this, like, unbelievable, got so much better shape, blah, blah, blah. But like, the kind of behind the scenes report was like, it was not
great.
great. And
Yeah.
it didn't last very long. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. But to me, like he probably, like we can predict injury risk much more than we thought. And in some teams
Better than ever before.
Better than ever before. There's some examples in team sports of like really being incredible at like basically eliminating non-contact profound injuries. Like it's actually happened.
Mhm.
So to me, it's like get him in a real program like that. They hired a guy who sort of has that reputation at the Pelicans, but did he even work with Zion? Does Zion even listen to him? Like
right. That second part is big.
It is.
Because
Yeah.
even if the team did everything right, that
He's not
doesn't
listening.
mean Zion is
well, but also
buying it.
one of the things to do right is earn trust, right? And like
Yeah.
that's where I bring up this story is like, like, whoops, didn't get him.
Mhm.
Felt like he had to go back to Stanford to get an environment that was safe for him, right? So yeah, I guess a lot of people will blame Zion. I know Charles Barkley's telling him lose weight. And
I was
blah, blah,
fat, lose
blah.
weight like me. It's like, bro.
Yeah.
Is that when did he say that?
Last week, maybe.
All playoffs,
Yeah.
the finals.
Oh, okay.
And which is like
I never listened to him.
for good reason.
Yeah.
But I would
He's
be
not wrong about that.
I mean, there are a whole bunch of teams that have no path to a title, right? And like, I could see that Zion would be maybe
sell tickets.
maybe he's 30% likely to be back full bore. That's probably a way higher percentage than your team has right now to be elite, right? Like, and if he's good, he's
Amazing.
When he plays, he is one of the best players in the NBA. All the metrics say that. Like
super
when he
good.
plays.
Yeah. And when he talks, like that, if you listen to him on Old Man and the Three, like, great guy.
Yeah, he seems like a nice kid.
Some disconnect, some disbelief in the team thing, whatever. It's not working. Didn't work with the Pelicans. Didn't work with Anthony Davis Pelicans either.
Also true.
Anyway,
Well, remember for a while the Pelicans were like employing the Saints medical staff to like run all their, and it's like, well, football and basketball aren't the same. You probably should not do that.
And they just got rid of Teresa Witherspoon, the
did.
Zion Whisperer.
Yeah.
Look, it's between Zion and Ja. It's just it's a sad situation because they're young kids and for different reasons are having a tough time dealing with this NBA, which we all admit it's not easy to be NBA superstar. Like that's fucking a lot of shit like that's going on.
It sounds like you're setting us up for the draft. Hey, everyone. Curb your enthusiasm a little bit here. Okay? The Pelicans just knew Zion Williamson was be the face of the NBA and they're going to be competing for championships. And the Memphis Grizzlies just knew after the second year, John Morant was be the face of the NBA and they're going to make the NBA finals. And we know how that's worked out so far. So curb, just tone it down a little bit, Larry David style, right? Like if the draft is one night, there's no games played.
Yeah.
Most of these guys have not played 5-on-5 since, except for the combine for a couple of days, since mostly March, a little bit in April. Let's just wait.
Yeah, no, this is why we're partners, David. It's a perfect segue, right? Because this is exactly what we're going to talk about. Like, look, as you mentioned, the draft is one night. Everybody be happy. It's your lifelong dream. Like, we get it. But David, what's so great about David is when he's talking to his players and training them. We always say on this pod, like, I am the sort of like, well, let's be a little more political about how we say that. Nope, David just cuts right to the hard truth.
You're going to be in Poland?
You're going to be in Poland if you don't start working better. Well, it's probably true, right? Like, probably it's going to happen. But look, it's so important where guys get drafted, right? The situation, Henry, you talk about all the time, building trust. And God, the NBA is just so fucking bad at this all around, right? Like, they're not good. And so the players who are going to be good no matter what and who can fight through whatever, they're going to make it. But most people need to be in the right situation to get the most out of them. And I worry so much about all these guys. I think Vic's going to be fine in San Antonio. I think that's a good place for him, but fuck, I don't know.
So, well, what I've always said is it's not the player that's being drafted. It's the team that drafts them, with some exceptions. There are some exceptions. That's what no one understands is they think it's all about the science of the draft pick when it's reality, the science and the culture of the team that's doing the drafting. That's what's more of the two gravitational forces. That is almost always, not always, but almost always the more powerful force. But we don't get to see that because that's not so easy to see.
Yeah.
We have to evaluate at TrueHoop. That's what we do. And so the Thompson twins,
Mm.
Leonard Miller that we talked about today,
You like
almost all of these guys. Yeah, really. I did some research on them too, beyond what Henry told me about them. We can do that on Thursday if you want. The draft is Thursday, right?
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm catching a lot of guys, but like most of them need to get that break and get to the right team and the right strategies and systems and culture overall to reach their potential for at least a couple years before they're moved. Most of these guys are moved so often. When you were talking, Jarod, when you were talking earlier about Chris Paul,
Yeah.
I just started thinking, didn't he start his career in New
He
Orleans?
sure did.
Like, just imagine had they just always found a way to keep that guy forever. They would have won way more games than they ended up winning. Agreed, guys?
Chris Paul is one of the winningest players in the history of
Oh,
NBA
my
basketball.
God. Right.
That is a factual stat. Look it up.
Right. Just find a way to keep these guys happy and keep moving the right direction and manage your cap and all of that. When you have a guy like that, how many teams is Durant been on now?
Mhm.
Right. And now Beal's only on a second team, which isn't so bad, but like that would be the goal. Build the right team. Really, Apple doesn't want to lose their best engineers. Right? They don't. That'd be your best served do it that way.
Yeah.
With the possible exception of Lillard and the Blazers.
But it's a great point, though, Henry. Had they done a better job, then they would have. Last year's Damian Lillard would have been competing for a contender.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was fucking unbelievable.
Excellent.
He was so fast and so quick and so smart with that kind of shooting. And he was on a terrible team. I don't blame Dame for that.
You're hurting Henry's feelings now. Now he's getting sad thinking about it. It's getting very sad.
But they've also he's been this incredible for a decade.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a combination of teammates. Maybe they're just so inept, but they keep trying to solve the Rubik's Cube and it keeps not getting
fail.
And he is one of the worst defenders in the NBA, which is part of it.
Right
there.
So he has to be on a team like Miami with defenders around him and all that.
Jamal Murray just won a championship. He lost
Also
4
true.
games. He's no better than Dame. Well, he's a little bit better than
Yeah,
Dame.
he's a little better.
But Dame on that team,
yeah,
he's a competitive dude. He ain't soft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I give him the benefit of the doubt that he'd be okay. This is a failure of the franchise, right?
Of course, you're right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're not arguing.
Henry, of course, you're right.
Right. Henry, you're being. I can't read him right now.
Poor Henry.
No, I totally agree. Like it's just there's like 7 things are broken. Like it doesn't matter which one we talk about. Like
it's all broken.
Yeah.
Thursday is the draft. But I did, Henry. We know about Victor. We know about Scoot. We know all those names, right? But you spent some time at P3 just seeing some guys do some cool shit. One of the things that you're excited about are the tests they do that don't involve vertical, just jumping high and running fast, right? There's all this other cool shit that determine, this guy's going to stay on the court because he's.
Look, a year ago, I was at the Combine at Flu Chicago and get there all the P3 staff, right? And on the court, and on ESPN and on the big leaderboard, they have all of these different drills, right? And they have done some research at P3 about those drills, and none of them mean anything, right? The person with the fastest 40-yard sprint, or this lane drill or whatever, or certainly vertical jump is literally uncorrelated with NBA success.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, has a 0 vertical jump.
Yeah, he has the lowest I've ever tested, right? And if you go look who won, Jalen Leck, is that how you say his last name? Or LeQ, I'm not sure. But he won it 2 years ago.
Where is he?
Do you know his name? And on and on, right? And then also you can cheat those tests. We can talk more about that another time. But you can absolutely cheat at those tests. At P3 they're trying to measure things that correlate with on-court success, right? And with injury risk, right? Reducing injury risk. And so I can't do the short version of that. It's 100 pages of the book by the book in a year. But the point is they, the players do all stuff on the court, and then they walk down a little hallway into a private place. Their agents can't go back there. Their friends can't go back there. Just the players, and they go into to do a brief version of the assessment that P3 does in Santa Barbara and in Atlanta. And from that, they were Jalen Williams is an unbelievable prospect, right? And when I first got to Chicago, he was projected him even in the first round. after the few days in Chicago, he was then projected like 17th, 18th. They took him, I think, 12th, and then he ended up second in Rookie of the Year voting, right? Like, this year, I didn't go to the combine, but I went out to Santa Barbara, and they had a whole bunch of players in the gym for months, and I literally hadn't even like said hello before Marcus goes off about how much he loves Anthony Black. Like, he's mostly talking about off court. Because this is amazing. Like, Marcus has not watched a ton of basketball. But he's just like, this guy's like an artist, and he's like a great guy. And there's a whole family thing where he like looked out for a bunch of people, and he's a warm, delightful guy. Everybody likes Anthony Black, right? And then he was, after his long period there before he went to the combine, they do a second assessment, and he had improved dramatically, which is a really amazing thing. It's hard to like learn how to manage your hips better, right? This is like a weird, most people find it kind of weird, but that's what they work on, right? And he had improved. I don't know what he improved specifically at, but he had improved in the way that everyone was like, and then later I was talking to Eric Liedersdorf, is like, so if Marcus gets a little excited, right? He's the CEO and the founder, and he can be emotional about. Eric is a very, very nice guy, a warm-hearted guy, but he won't give you a conclusion that isn't well founded in research. He just won't. You can't. I try to get him to do it. You can't get him to do it. And so I was trying to make fun of Marcus behind his back because I'm a classy guy like that. And basically, I was like, "Oh man, like Marcus is really going to town on this Anthony Black thing." All that. And Eric and I have made fun of Marcus behind his back a bunch of times, and Marcus knows this. But and I thought Eric would jump in with like, "Yeah, he's really being irrational, right?" Like, and but instead, Eric's like, "Oh, I got his back completely on AB. Like that's that guy." Like. So I have watched a little bit of Anthony Black. I've read the stuff. I'm not here to tell you I'm an expert on it, but I'm here to tell you that the people who were waving the flag for Jalen Williams a year ago, they're, for different reasons, super excited about Anthony Black right now. And I can see the argument. You know, he's I'm interested in what David thinks about him. But you know, he's a big, tough defender who's smart with the ball. To me, it's a little bit like I'm not saying he is Jason Kidd, but like Jason Kidd was once a player who was good at everything except shooting, and then became good at shooting.
Well, Jason was elite at a lot of things, but Anthony might be.
Yeah,
I haven't studied him yet. I will. He's on my list. I looked at a bunch of guys today, though, including Leonard Miller.
Yeah, who's also at P3. Yeah, great team.
Fucking love that dude.
What do you like about him?
Well, first of all, I love the fact that he was a point guard his whole life.
Yeah.
And as one high level executive in Canada told me, he doesn't work for the NBA, but he's a very Henry knows what I'm talking about. He's very involved in Canadian basketball. He's like, every time I saw him, it looked like he grew 3 inches, all like in a year.
Wow.
So I love that's Anthony Davis, Joakim Noah.
Yeah.
Point guard until all of a sudden, bloop, you just keep growing. And when you watch him play, he looks like a young giraffe trying to dribble the ball. Like, wait a second, I used to know how to do this stuff. The ball goes all over the place. You fix that stuff.
Yeah.
He's a more agile Julius Randle.
Ooh.
Like just super skilled, versatile guy. But he tests athletically very well, 37.5 inches. He doesn't know yet how to play athletically, I don't think, except for like wide open pick and rolls or whatever. But in traffic, I don't see the same explosion. But that's experience too. Just real zeal for the game, real passionate player. I like those tall guys that used to be short. Yeah, can really guard in space, I bet, because they're used to playing out in space. In his mind, he doesn't realize his body's 6'10". It's so the little shorty guarding people out there, moving your feet, changing direction. So when his body catches up, boy, that's gonna be. And he's projected to go like not top 20. I take him top 20. I tell you that.
Well, this is again what you always say, David. There's talent all over the place. Like you guys got to just identify it and then fucking do your job,
Develop
and
it.
coach it up and develop
Yeah.
it, right? Like,
Yeah.
He's a great guy too. Leonard's like Leonard was there both of the last 2 years because he was considering putting his name in the draft last year. And when I got a ride from that same Eric Liedersdorf to the pro day a year ago, which was at UCSB, and it was a busy parking lot, and Eric's trying to kind of navigate through, and Leonard Miller was walking as a car was like backing out, and Eric was talking. Eric just stopped, and I wasn't really paying attention to the pedestrian drama, and then and I'm like what's going on? He's like I would throw my body in front of a car for that guy. He just freaking loves him. Like loves him.
I spoke to 2 Canadians. One's in the NBA. And the other's his executive, and they love him.
They love him, yeah.
Like as a kid.
Yeah.
Wasn't very good when he was younger because he grew so fast.
Yeah.
So that body was out of it. So he sat the bench a lot. But for some of these high-level teams he was on. But, yeah, you grow out of that.
Everybody loves him. Yeah. Everybody at B3 loves him. Totally.
Leonard Miller, Anthony Black. See that, folks? These are names you probably don't have on your board because all you know about is Victor and Scoot and the Thompson twins, which,
they're I mean, Anthony Black's top 10 for everybody, right, Henry?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but Leonard's not. And I'm surprised at that a little bit, given just his situation. He's young, too. He's 19 and change.
I think he put up pretty big numbers for the G League Ignite. Like, he averaged
double. I mean, that's part of the problem, too, is just the G League Ignite.
Yeah.
But we'll talk next time. We'll talk Scoot, Victor, Brandon Miller, all that stuff. I've watched all them on tape already. I'll watch Anthony Black for sure. I've also heard great things. Nick Smith from Arkansas. I'll catch everything up on Thursday. No. I watched him in high school. I didn't watch him at Kansas. Whatever.
Oh my God.
Shooters matter.
Shooters matter. David gives you a hand, whatever. We ain't wasting any time on Grady Dick.
No, shooters matter. Shooters matter for sure. But we're talking about, we're trying to hit stars here. Yeah, he doesn't project as that. Yeah. He's no Jokic.
Well,
or KD.
Who is? Like, who are they?
Right. Like, Victor. Brandon Miller could be pretty damn good.
Oh, okay. We're saving this for Thursday. It's going to be good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Enjoy. We will see you on Thursday. NBA Draft Day.